Now, a lot of people suggest that the problems all started at the end of last week with the shooting of a North London man called Mark Duggan. He's 29 years old, and he was involved in what appears to be an exchange of fire with police officers up in Tottenham on Thursday of last week in the Ferry Lane area of Tottenham in North London. Now, the very latest we're hearing from the Independent Police Complaints Commission is that ballistic test results obtained by them suggest there is no evidence that Mark Duggan opened fire at the police officers before he was then shot dead by police. It's believed he died from a single gunshot wound to the chest. So no evidence that Mark Duggan opened fire at police officers before he was shot dead. And that is coming out of the latest information which has been released by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. A lot of people in the Tottenham area said that they took to the streets because of the altercation that ended in his death with the police in there. The inquest has heard that the father of four, who was 29 years old, died from a single bullet wound. A statement from his family said they were deeply distressed by the disorder affecting the communities across England that may have resulted from his death. And the coroner in the North London Coroner's Court in High Barnet adjourned the hearing until December while all these various inquiries are going to go on. Martin Brunt joins me now, our crime correspondent, who's at Scotland Yard. So, IPCC come out, Martin, with the news that Mark Duggan did not open fire at police officers before he was shot dead.
Yes, I mean, that's really corroboration of what we were saying 24 hours ago. But the point the IPCC is saying is that there's no evidence to show that the gun was fired, but it also adds a caveat to say the advice from the Forensic Science Service, the organisation that's doing these ballistic tests, is that it may not be possible to establish for certain whether the gun that was found there was fired. It does make the point in the statement that the gun, which it describes as not a replica but a converted BBM Brunei self-loading pistol, as far as the law is concerned, it's a working weapon, not a replica, but it did have a bullet in the magazine. Now, we know from our sources yesterday that the firearms officers involved in the shooting of Mark Duggan have never suggested at all, I'm told, that they had been fired on. They have told investigators, I understand, that they felt a very good reason, they felt in danger because of the gun that was found at the scene later. They felt their life was threatened, or at least one officer felt his life was threatened, and that was the reason for opening fire on Mark Duggan. Again, this statement from the IPCC confirms something else we were talking about yesterday, that one bullet was responsible for Mark Duggan's death. He was shot in the chest, we heard at the inquest today. That was enough to kill him. The second bullet that was fired by the same officer went through his arm, and that's the bullet that ended up lodged in another police officer's radio. But more information finally from the IPCC. They've been under an awful lot of pressure to come up with some details, but there's still, of course, a lot of unanswered questions. This may go some way to appeasing Mark Duggan's family, who've been very annoyed at the lack of information, but of course there's still an awful lot more to come. And as one of the senior investigators from the IPCC told the inquest today, it's a complex investigation that may go on for another 4 to 6 months.
There is little doubt that his death certainly caused a disturbance and some protests in the Tottenham area on Friday and Saturday that may have led to some of the problems that broke out there. But it's hard to imagine that they're a justification for the rioting and the looting we've seen elsewhere in London.
No, I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that. I think you might find that a lot of people involved in the violence and the looting will try and argue perhaps that that's the reason, but I don't think any sane person could look at the absolute mayhem many miles from Tottenham last night particularly, would argue that there is any at least direct connection between Mark Duggan's death and that kind of activity. But as I say, people might try and justify it, but those involved might try and justify it.
Thanks very much indeed. Martin Brunt reporting from Scotland Yard, just confirmation of what he had learned yesterday, really, that there is no evidence that London man, 29-year-old Mark Duggan, actually fired on police in the riots. That ended up being a catalyst in the riots. It seems that police shot him before he was able to fire a gun himself. More on that story. We'll also be taking a look at what's been going on around the country with reports from Birmingham city centre coming out very shortly.